Bangladesh Supreme Court today has scaled back the job quotas that triggered violent protests in the country. The top court called the High Court's order reinstating the quotas as illegal and directed the veterans' quota be cut to 5% from the existing 30%. However, the Supreme Court did not abolish the quota completely. 5% of civil service jobs will be set aside for children of veterans from Bangladesh's War of Independence and 2% for other specific groups. The job quota system was ended in 2018, but last month the lower court order had brought it back, triggering violent protests and clashes in the country. This had led to the death of over 100 protesters. Police also received shoot-on-sight orders amidst the curfew that was imposed to curb the protests. Besides protesters, 300 Bangladeshi police officers have also been injured till now in multiple locations around Dhaka. The students of Bangladesh have taken to the streets demanding an end to a quota system that reserves up to 30% of government jobs for relatives of veterans who fought in Bangladesh's War of Independence in 1971 against Pakistan. Now, what remains to be seen is whether the Supreme Court verdict bringing down the quota from 30% to 5% is successful in curbing violence and restoring peace. Joining us at this point live is Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We also have Major General J.K. Bansal, defense expert, live with us. Pathikrit Pain, international affairs expert, also joins us live. Ambassador Mukherjee, let me begin with you first. Do you believe this fresh Supreme Court ruling is likely to curb protests in Bangladesh?
Because these ongoing protests do not do any good to the reputation of either the Bangladesh Prime Minister or the government in maintaining law and order and good governance. Secondly, it's in a poor country which has just come out of LDC status. Naturally, government jobs hold a lot of security. There aren't so many options available in Bangladesh. The situation was very much like what it was for us soon after independence, where we were encouraged to go into government jobs because of the security, because of the pension, etc. Now that the Supreme Court has done what it has, it is hoped that the opposition politicians will not try to meddle further and bring up other issues so as to keep Bangladesh on the boil for some more weeks. It's not good for Bangladesh's reputation or for its economy. And as far as India is concerned, we have watched with concern. We have not made comments. We have brought more than 1,000 students, Indian students, back to India, those who want to come back. And we are watching and waiting to see how this will impact the agitation tomorrow, that is Monday. So we can only be hopeful that the Supreme Court judgment will help to calm things down. Reservations in any case are a very sensitive issue in developing countries, and this was a reservation that was grossly over-reserved. There was nothing, hardly anything left for merit. So where would meritorious students whose parents were not involved in the liberation struggle, where would they go? How would they survive? So these are very basic issues which the Bangladesh government has to come to terms with.
All right, let me in fact take that across to Pathikrit Pain as well. Pathikrit, clearly, of course, the Supreme Court now bringing down the quota, not abolishing the law completely, but ruling in this fresh observations as well. Do you believe that this will have an impact on the protests?
Well, Uday, I think this is a litmus test for the protesters and those who have been protesting. I think the decision of the Supreme Court to scale back the reservation from 30% to 5%, I think it's a very welcome step. In that way, you certainly keep certain seats reserved for the families of the veterans, but at the same time, you also ensure that there is enough scope for merit to actually get legitimate opportunities. But at the same time, we have to see whether the protest end or not, because even though the protest initially started, on the pretext of this issue of quota, even though it's surprising because Sheikh Hasina government herself went to the Supreme Court, did not want the reinstatement or reinstation of this, quota, which was reinstated by the High Court. But at the same, but surprisingly, there was a narrative which was built that Supreme Court, even if they give a verdict against the quota, Sheikh Hasina government would ensure that it is, brought back, even though in 2018 she was the one who scrapped it something which was going on from 1972. So it started on the pretext of the quota, but eventually, if you see the comments and everything that is coming for the last 2-3 days, I think the entire movement has got galvanized and navigated towards a larger issue where the protesters are asking the government to resign. They are they are terming that this government is not a democratic government, and there are many things. So it is important to ensure that we still remain cautious. It is important that Bangladesh government remains cautious, because even though we all hope that the protest ends, and things go back to normalcy, and the students don't suffer anymore, but you cannot rule out the possibility that the protests are continued on certain pretext or the other. And I always say this, that student protest is a very, very emotive issue. Student protest is a very, very delicate issue that requires a lot of delicate handling, that requires a lot of communication, that requires a lot of alacrity in terms of handling it. Because in today's era of social media, because in today's era where narrative can be built through the social media, something which is not stated or said can be made to be seen as a statement which can trigger violence, which can trigger a larger protest. And there are times where things are said and then it gets distorted. So there are lessons for Bangladesh government also to be learned to ensure eventually that whatever grievances they have are addressed, and at the same time to ensure that the things do not go to that extent that it creates an Arab Spring kind of a situation that happened in many of the Middle Eastern and North African countries. Invariably, Uday, one thing is for sure, that when you have a critical situation, a polarized society as it is in Bangladesh, there would be certain elements who would try to fish in muddied water. So that possibility cannot be ruled out in this case also. Bangladesh economy is at a critical cusp. They have emerged as one of the economy with the potential. But if the law and order situation does not remain stable, then the possibility of investments not coming remains high. I was hearing some of the students or those who are supporting the protesters saying that those who stay abroad, the Bangladeshis, should not remit the money to the formal banking system, which was alarming, because they're trying to hit the formal banking system. And somewhere, there has been prison breaks also. So we have to see what other elements are involved and how the government of Bangladesh or the law enforcement agencies deal with it. Back to you.
Yes, absolutely. Let me, in fact, also quickly rope in Major General Bansal, who's also with us live. Major General Bansal, Bangladesh, of course, rocked by these protests over the last few days. We've seen death toll also continue to rise. But now with this fresh Supreme Court ruling, what do you believe the ramifications are going to be?
Definitely, it will calm down up to a certain extent, but the reason being that behind these riots, there is a hand of China and Pakistan. Both are instigating that. The reports are coming that yes, because Sheikh Hasina, she cut short the visit. I think she went to China in July, that is 8th to 9th, and she cut short. As it was promised by the China to invest more money in Bangladesh, but they did not that. And she came back. She was not happy, and that is the one of the reasons being considered that China is doing, or China is behind these riots, is instigating. Similarly, Pakistan is never happy with China, with Bangladesh, its growth, and one of the political party is pro-Pakistani in Bangladesh, and they are behind these riots. Otherwise, the Bangladesh is doing very well. They are having about $40 billion the worth of the clothes export and all. Now, I hope that things will calm down. Their people will try to understand that yes, by riots and such kind of situation, their economy will go down. And for the growth of economy, it is very, very important that there is a peaceful peace should prevail over there. Let us hope for the best. Of course, Sheikh Hasina government is doing very well. It has created wealth to the Bangladesh, and there's a lot of development. But at the Same time, there are certain charges of corruption on her government, saying up to the extent the one of employee who was working with Sheikh Hasina office and used to serve drink and water, etc. He has become billionaire, and now he has gone out. And while Sheikh Hasina is also surprised how it happens, and she has ordered an inquiry about all matters. So, with the judgment of Supreme Court and will of the government, and if the external elements are not so active, and the peoples will understand and the peace will come. Jay. Yes, please.
Yes, Ambassador Bashwati Mukherjee, coming quickly back across to you, there are still, many analysts who are, of course, looking at this situation there and wondering as to what has triggered the protests. Has it simply been this lower court's order? Has it been external interference? What really has caused Bangladesh to, descend to this kind of internal chaos that we haven't seen for a bit in the country?
I would say that the lower court order must have been the spontaneous trigger for such rioting. But once the rioting broke out, we cannot rule out, as Pathikrit has rightly pointed out, other extraneous factors. Those extraneous factors we are well aware of. Sheikh Hasina has many, many enemies. The opposition party is closely linked with Pakistan. They have an inimical hostility towards her. She also is not popular with some Western countries who do not regard her stay as prime minister as based on fair and free elections. For whatever reason, they hold their opinion. We don't share that. So it is highly possible that just like the George Soros case or the toolkit gang who tried to interfere in India's elections, it is quite possible that there are sinister factors which are behind this level, this scale of rioting, the amount of damage they did, that virtually part of the country had to be shut down, the internet had to be cut, the police had shoot at order site, etc. These are very unusual measures in a democracy. So that is why I said that on Monday, when the full impact of the judgment will be made known to the people, and let us face it, Bengalis are extremely excitable people. They go by emotions rather than sometimes by reason. I can assure you that, being a Bengali myself. Once they are worked up, they take a little bit of time to cool down. I can assure you that it is the same on our part of Bengal also. So let's give them 48 hours, because it's not like in the north of India or the south of India. Give them a couple of days to cool down and see reason. If they see reason, hopefully it will cool down. Otherwise, those who are instigating them, it will be exposed, because the reason for the rioting is over. So there's no reason for them to damage public property. They should cool down, calm down, let law and order come back, let the colleges open, and let them go back. This is not the first time, by the way, that Dhaka University and other universities have been the center of agitations. In fact, the very liberation of Bangladesh in 71, the struggle originated in Dhaka University, which is also the alma mater university of my own mother. And the Pakistanis gunned down the professors, committed genocide in Dhaka University because they wanted to kill the revolution which rocked East Pakistan at its roots. So you need to give them time to cool down, Vineet. And I think 2 to 3 days would be a good time factor to assess.
Pathikrit, do you believe this will be really a test now of whether there are external forces at play, or whether this is simply a spontaneous protest caused due to the lower court order with this rollback now?
Uday, the beauty of external interference, if any, is that even when they are there, it is made to believe that those who are involved in protest, they don't realize, they think that it is organic in nature. Because if you look at the way you can deal with social media, you can push amplify certain kind of feed. There are a lot of things that can be done. We have seen such things happening in India as well during elections. A lot of fake things came up during the anti-CA protest also. So there are telltale signs of Arab Spring that could be seen, whether it's in India or in some of the other places. But I hope two things about. I'm optimistic about two things. Number one, I hope no more students die. You know, death of students is always tragic wherever it is. Secondly, I hope no more damage is done to the infrastructure in Bangladesh or the economy of Bangladesh, because the university students must also realize that when millions of students come out graduating from universities in Bangladesh, not everybody is going to get a government job. So a large section of them will eventually be part of the private sector. Now, private sector is very sensitive to law and order situation. Investments, foreign investments, or your own people investing in the economy will only happen if they are ensured that the law and order is fine, if they are ensured that their properties will not get damaged. So I think it is important, because the university students are mature, they are not like anybody else. Because they are mature, we hope that it is restored, the law and order, the peace comes back. You can have debates, you can debate with the government, you can have grudges with the government, that's a different issue. But I always say that that is a different thing. Go for debates, go for discussions, go for dissent. But if it leads to such situations where precious lives are lost, if it leads to a situation where your own country's economy gets hampered, then it is going to hamper your future only. So I think if even for this issue of what happened in the recent past, it was surprising that the protest became amplified after the Supreme Court verdict initially came that they're going to scrap the quota. And then they kept it in abeyance for 4 weeks because they wanted some more hearing to be done. That is when the protest started, because the students were asking the Sheikh Hasina government to have a constitutional amendment. Whereas what I understand, the government was saying, let the court finally decide. Now that was not the time for for have this kind of a violent unrest when both the government and the Supreme Court are on the same side that the quotas must come down. So I think that is where suspicions come as to whether it was an organic protest or the entire anger and emotions have been directed towards somewhere else by some people to ensure that an anti-government narrative and whole environment or climate is created. Whoever did it, whatever the issue is, eventually 105 or 130 latest figures, precious lives have been lost. That is something that in future should be avoided. That's why a normalcy, a betterment of situation and economic growth, I always feel should continue as it is. Otherwise, Bangladesh is in a delicate situation, as I'm telling you right now. It doesn't take much time for an economy of Bangladesh stature to suddenly go from an emerging, fast-growing, rapidly developing economy to something like a Sri Lanka, where it's almost on the verge of bankruptcy. So it is important for the students, postgraduate students who are part of the protest, to understand where to draw the line so that it doesn't hamper the future of their own or the coming generation.
How do you see these protests and the situation panning out, Major General Bansal? And also, as far as the government's position is concerned, how have they handled the protests? Have adequate steps been taken or not?
As far as students are concerned, they are very emotional. They don't go by reasoning, or don't know, as has been told by the previous speaker, that they will understand what is good for them and what is not good for them. They are very unlikely, and at this hot moment when they are into it, nobody is going to do that. And moreover, such kind of violence cannot be spread by the student alone. These days, any movement by the student is being taken over by the for the political gain, and by this elements, unsocial elements. They always take advantage of it. So I feel that students alone are not able to do it, but good sense prevail on students and all the well-wisher of Bangladesh that yes, now it should come an end. Otherwise, the biggest economy will goes down if there are riots are there. So many things happens. There will not be any factories. They will be closed. Nobody will be ready to invest. So government hopefully will control. And moreover, India's support is always there. We wish all the best, and Pakistan should also realize. But the only problem is because Pakistan is having unrest in their country, and once they have got the unrest in their own country, they want it to be done in other places also. They are disturbing others also, and China wants to have everybody under their control. If somebody does not comes under their control and does not comes to their terms and conditions, then they try to fix that particular country, and or they are maybe trying to now trying to gain something out of it, or trying to grab whatever they want from the Bangladesh. So all these external factors, if they go out and they don't interfere much, then there will be peace. Hopefully it will come, and I think Sheikh Hasina is a very mature politician and she will handle it. Ji.
Ambassador Mukherjee, what should be the India viewpoint on these protests, on this situation in our neighboring country, and any lessons that we can also learn from this crisis and how it's panned out?
Well, I don't know what the India viewpoint. I see from social media that the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has already commented, saying that Bengal's doors are open to those who knock on it in distress. That is a tricky political statement because it can encourage refugee exodus from the Bangladesh side of the border into West Bengal. She's also acknowledged that statements regarding the situation in Bangladesh are Bangladesh's internal issue, and for the center to comment. But nevertheless, she has gone ahead and made the comment. The center has made no comment. I don't think the center should make any comment. It is an internal situation in Bangladesh. It is for the Bangladeshi government to control the situation. I am sure we have already beefed up security on the Indo-Bangladesh border. That is the prerogative of the center. And I am sure, regardless of whatever the Chief Minister of West Bengal says, we will certainly not encourage refugee inflow across the border into Bengal. And that hopefully should not happen if the violence goes down. Those whom we have encouraged to leave are Indian students who informed the Indian High Commission in Dhaka that they don't feel secure, and they have been bussed. I believe they've been bussed out, or they've taken private taxis to cross the border. That's more than 1,000 of them, and I think that would be the limit. I don't see anyone else crossing over. I am hopeful that the situation will normalize. I agree with Pathikrit when he says that the Bangladesh economy is at a tricky stage. It is growing fast. On the other hand, there are certain compulsions of economic development which are lacking in Bangladesh. Then there are certain industries in which they are over-concentrated, while others they have not been able to develop fully. So while they are growing, in complete contrast to some of India's other neighbors, that growth which they are enjoying at the moment could become undone if there is economic or political instability. That is why it is also very important for the Bangladesh government to bring the situation back under control. And it's also very important for them not to fall into the Chinese debt trap, which hopefully they have not fallen into, because Sheikh Hasina cut short her visit to China and came back to Dhaka earlier than expected, because she didn't get to meet the head of state of China, and that was the reason why she came back. So we have to just hope for the best, while recognizing that unrest in Bangladesh directly impacts India's security, because Bengal is a sensitive border state, and anything that happens in Bangladesh over a long term will naturally impact the law and order and security situation of India as a whole, and of West Bengal in particular.
Last word to you, Pathikrit.
Well, I completely agree with what Ambassador Mukherjee mentioned, that we should not comment on it formally as Government of India, and I think the Government of India has done the right thing by not commenting. But I think it's very important even for India to be very cautious. If you see what is happening in United States to Bangladesh, to many other countries, there are desperation from the side of the this cabal, left liberal cabal of the West,
Yes.
This kind of things are something that no one can guarantee it cannot happen in India again. We have seen it is happened. It happened in anti-CA protest, anti-farm law protest. The best thing the government of India did that time was to ensure that no bullets are used, no gun power is used, because that amplifies situations.
Okay.
In case of Bangladesh also, the same thing happened. I think these situations in today's era, we have to deal in a different way.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.